Welcome to the Gracie Interview Series. I have the honor of introducing today two women who are quintessential storytellers of our time, Julia Whelan and Kristin Hannah. As we know, the Alliance for Women in Media is all about celebrating storytellers, and to have these two with us today to learn and hear from them is a highlight for sure. Often called the Meryl Streep of audiobooks, Julia is one of the most celebrated voices in the industry. This year, she received the very first Gracie Award for Audiobook Narrator at the 50th Gracie Awards for her narration of Kristin Hannah's The Women. And it's only fitting that we're joined by Kristin, the award-winning and best-selling author of more than 20 novels. Her most recent, The Women, was included in last year's Gracie Awards gift bag, making today's conversation an especially meaningful and full circle moment. We are delighted to have both of you here today, and I'm excited to turn it over to the two of you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Becky. That's great. Julia, so
Hi.
nice to see you. I am thrilled to be here. Congratulations, of course, on the Gracie Award and all of your amazing success. And this is the first time I've ever been a moderator, so it's like really the shoes on the other foot here.
It's true. We usually switch. Yeah.
Yes, like usually someone's asking me questions. But I'm so excited about this because, it's been from the author side of things, it's been so amazing to watch not only the explosion of audiobooks and narration and the embracing of this media and these books, but to see your rise in it and to see you go from the beginning to where you are now. And I have just so many questions, so I'm just going to dive in and say, how did you get started in all of this? I know you were an actress, so how did you make this transition and why?
Yeah, so I was a child actor, kind of reaching the peak of my fame and working life in high school. And then coincidentally, the show that I was on, which was called Once and Again, kind of prestige TV before that existed, ended at the same time that I graduated from high school. And so I took the opportunity to leave the business and go to college. I got an English and creative writing degree. Didn't want to do theater while I was there. And it was at my college graduation that one of my best friend's moms, who happened to be an audiobook director and producer with a company called Brilliance, suggested to me that with this weird little niche skill set that I had in both literature and performance, maybe I should look into doing audiobooks. And that became, I didn't know what an audiobook was. I had never listened to one, but I knew that I loved reading books and I knew that I loved acting. And so when I went back to Los Angeles after graduation, I started kind of taking out CD audiobooks on CD from the library and listening to them as I was going back and forth in the city, going to auditions. And I kind of fell in love with it. I was like, I get this. I think this would be very interesting. So I sent her a demo, and she gave me at that time two young adult novels to do because YA was booming. And I think the happy accident of my career is that I started doing this at the moment that young adult literature was this massive category, and they needed younger sounding voices for it. Um, and it just kind of snowballed. I love doing it. I got better at it. It's a job you can really only learn by doing. And within a few years, it was really taking over my life. It kind of became my full-time job. Um, and I've never been like more suited to something that was also as terrifying as it was because it's unlike any other form of acting, or storytelling. And so I just had to find my way through that.
I mean, that it's just so amazing. And I mean, we talked at one of our events one time about the physical, how you do this and how you prepare for this and where you sit for this. I know that now you have a studio in your home, right? And your husband, you guys are partners. Yes. But I'm sure you didn't have a studio when you started. So were you sitting like in your clothes closet? Like where were you doing this originally?
Back when I first was getting going, there were still studios, I mean, there are still studios, but all of us were going into recording studios. And I remember specifically a turning point where in 2012, Audible seemed to get this remit. I think they finally figured out what they had when they bought Audible, when Amazon bought Audible. It's like they finally figured out what they had. And so there was this decree that kind of came down of like, we're going to put every book ever written on audio, which was insanely ambitious and obviously didn't end up happening. But if you were an audiobook narrator at that time living near a recording studio, like if you were in one of the major markets, you were working constantly. These studios were open 24 hours a day. We were doing swing shifts, graveyard shifts, like we were just reading the books. And that was really, I think, the kind of testing ground of, how to get good at this, how to get efficient at this. And then realizing that wouldn't it be better if you could just have your studio in your house and be in control of your own time. So that's how that transition happened. I think I've had my own booth since 2013.
I'm so amazed as the author, sort of hearing how you take sort of my work and add this layer where it's also your work, and you, I know, work really hard at making that seamless. But it is still an artistic interpretation. And I love how you sort of prepare for this, because it's a lot of work, and I think people would love to hear about that.
Thank you. Um, it is, yeah. So I feel like the job of a narrator is to do exactly what you said, which is balance the author voice. I never want to impose on what an author is doing. I want to let the text speak for itself, but I also understand that because I think I'm an author myself, I understand that this is a really sensitive process. And the audiobook is truly the first and truest adaptation you're ever going to get of your book. Anything that happens in film is going to be cutting things, you're going to be moving things around, they have to change it. I'm not changing a word. I'm not allowed to change a word. I am reading your book, but I want to create in the listener the feeling I had when I first read it. So when I do my prep read of a book, I'm keeping a list of words that I need to do research on and know how to pronounce. In your case, in the case of the women, obviously, I did a lot of Vietnam research. I'm keeping a character list of all of the characters that appear in the book, speaking characters, and any vocal traits that you've given them. Any biographical traits as well, like where they're from, where their family is from. And then I'm building out kind of a constellation of like, let's say the top 6 or 8 characters that are always in conversation with each other. So in this case, again, like who's her family, who are the people on base in Vietnam. Those are the people that are always going to be in conversation with each other. And at that point, I start differentiating voices to try to create a distinguishable listening experience for the listener. But I am also keeping track of how the book is just making me feel as a reader when I'm reading it. And I'm marking those sections so that when I get there in the performance, I remember what it was like to read it for the first time, and I try to bring that to the listener.
I remember we were in one of our events, and you were talking about, I think it was the women specifically, about the difficulty that you face with a book like mine, that's really emotional, where there are a lot of really high emotional moments. And, reading through these and getting through these without showing your own emotion, in any way, but somehow still embracing what it's like. So, I mean, what's the challenge of that? How do you actually accomplish that on the really difficult emotional scenes?
So it's taken a while to kind of get my head around this and to understand the difference even for myself. But I think what I've come to is that in acting, when you're doing on camera acting, there's kind of a classic actor dictum of it's not my job to cry, it's my job to make you cry. That's a huge oversimplification, obviously. Sometimes it is my job to cry, but it is about trying to affect something in the viewer. What I think is challenging about audiobook narration is I'm not just responsible for one character. I'm responsible for all the characters, and more than that, I'm responsible for the overall narrative voice of the piece. So, one of the examples I always talk about is from The Great Alone, which was the first book we did together, where that there's a deathbed scene, and that 1.5 page scene took me like 3 hours to get through because if I was emotional and crying in the voice of the main character, that was fine, as long as it was obviously decipherable and understandable. That was fine. But then I would have to switch back to the narrative voice within the in the description, or I'd have to switch into another character's voice. And then it's not fine. So that's why that was just like piecemeal, like one sentence at a time, kind of getting myself regulated to do it. So I know when I'm booking time for a Kristin Hannah book, I'm not scheduling more than like a finished hour a day because chances are you're going to put me through the ringer.
Well, that's my half of the job. Let's face it.
Yeah.
You know,
You're
I
like,
just
how can I make Julia cry today?
actually, I do find now that we've worked together for so many books, and now that I've really sort of begun to understand your process and seen how it works out, I do find myself as I'm writing a novel rethinking my tags, rethinking, do I have to say said here? Because Julia is not going to want to do these things. She's got the skill to differentiate these voices so that you know who's speaking. But you still do them all. You never like take them out or do any of that, right?
I can't as a narrator. I have to read it as it's written. It's up to the publisher what they do in post. For our company, for like Audio Brewery, I take out almost all the tags because I can.
And because they're not necessary in that form, and maybe that's something that needs to be sort of discussed on kind of an industry wide kind of a thing. But I suppose that there are few narrators of your skill level, and so I guess that would probably make a huge difference on when they're in there.
And I think it's also, I mean, one of the things I've found, and again, this is like more of a writer sensitivity than an actor, but sometimes the links or the dialogue tags aid the rhythm of something. Like it gives the listener a kind of beat to like download and process what they just heard. It's like filler in the best way. So it's very specific of like is when it's necessary, when it's not. Obviously, when I'm doing kind of like an Emily Henry level banter or something, no, I would like to get rid of the dialogue tags. They are dragging down the rhythm. But sometimes you need that beat of just, oh, okay, like having, a life raft in the middle of something before swimming to the next shore.
I mean, that's what I think makes you so exceptional and remarkable in this. It's not just that you're an actress. It's not just that you're a fan of a lot of these books, a genuine fan of a lot of these books that you're doing, but you're also a writer yourself. And so you understand that craft and that storytelling at kind of a completely different level, I think, than most people do, which kind of segues into, I know this is about the Gracie Award and your amazing narration of this particular book, but one of the things that I found so fascinating is you are on kind of a personal quest to semi-alter, to change, to open up this industry, the audiobook industry, and you've got your company, Audio Brewery, and you are out there really, I think, forging a path. And so what made you decide to do that?
Thank you, first of all. You've been so supportive of what I've been trying to do for so long, and I really appreciate that. Yeah, for me, I've been doing this 15 years. I've done 700 books. I've watched the industry explode. I've kind of been in the center of that explosion. And the thing that is just unfair at this point, because I remember back when the on-camera actors had to deal with this and they fought for it and they won. But the thing that I've never understood about audiobooks is that in a publishing industry, which is a royalties-based industry, and then on-camera acting, which has residuals, we get money anytime a show airs. Here we are at the kind of nexus of those two industries, and narrators don't get royalties. So it doesn't matter if I'm doing the women and it's selling millions and millions of copies. I got paid, one flat fee, and that's it. And the argument has always been audiobooks don't make money, and that's not true anymore, as we all know. And so, in the case of success, I think that the people who actually contributed to making the thing should be compensated. And after years of asking publishers to kind of do the right ethical thing and being told a corporate bottom line of we just don't do that, I realized the only recourse was to start my own audio publishing company. And in doing that, we give narrators royalties, but we also give authors a higher percentage of royalties. We do a profit share with authors because I also think, again, from the author side of things, the system is pretty broken on their side as well. So it's my attempt to try to make this a sustainable livelihood. As AI is bearing down on us and as synthetic voice is taking over, I can definitely envision a future where most of the books that are coming out, the audiobooks, are done by synthetic voice or celebrities. And the products that have existed forever that are beloved because they're human voice are continuing to sell and making money for publishers and authors, but not for the narrators that contributed to them. And I'm just trying to, I don't know, maybe it was like turning 40, but I started glimpsing my my future and I was like, we gotta go. Like I gotta secure some stuff. But that's been my quest over the last couple of years is to try to change the industry so that it's sustainable for the humans that actually create the art, if possible.
Well, and of course, that dovetails nicely with this first Gracie Award for audio and sort of this, recognition of what the industry is becoming and what the books are becoming. And it's always so fun for me to do events with you when I'm on book tour for whatever, because we've done, quite a few now. And the fans that come up to you are just rabid. I mean, they love you. They buy books because of you. I often hear, "Oh, I bought The Women because Julia." And I was like, it's really great to see you getting the recognition that I think you have long deserved. And as a writer, novelist, who's been lucky enough to have you for several books, I thank you, from the bottom of my heart for doing such a great job on my books and on other books as well. And I think that's pretty much what we have time for today. I think, does Becky have a few more questions or comments?
Well, what I would say is this has been incredible. For
That's Becky's comment.
two brilliant women in media to be here on a stage with the Alliance for Women in Media. One of the things I wrote down is that this year was the 50th of the Gracie Awards. And while there are a lot of awards programs out there, there are very few that have been around for 50 years, very specifically celebrating storytellers. And I wrote down how journalists have really always had to make sure that they were getting to the heart of the story, and wrote down specifically, Julia, that you said that audiobook is the most purest form of a book, even when it's taken to television or anything, that you actually have to make sure that you connect and that you're changing the industry for the people who are creating the art. And that you've read 700 books, you said, and you are literally changing the industry for other women in media. That, this was our first year for this award, which I'm sure for both of you seems unbelievable. But for an organization like ours, how important it is what both of you are doing as a storyteller, Kristin, in its written form, and being able to have someone to pass it to in Julia for her to read it and to be able to create that story.
It's also just, as you know, I didn't know that you had included the print book in the swag the year before, but it is obviously such a perfect book for this as well. Like in terms of Kristin did such a beautiful job of painting a picture about the power of women coming together and supporting each other and really being the bedrock for each other through challenging things. And I honestly am, there's a lot of challenges in the world right now, but the media landscape is definitely one of them. And how are we fighting for equity and and sustainability for the future?
Well, and one of the things that you're talking about, Julia, is also, we're hearing exactly like you said, the world of media is a really challenging one right now. Music rights, what's happening in, for musicians and artists across the board. The landscape is changing for broadcast journalism, those who are on television,
Yes.
and how a contract works and what does the bottom line look like. So what you're experiencing is so similar to what all of our partners and women in media are dealing with in this art form that is now taking such center stage and bringing more people into reading in a whole new way. And what a huge moment for you to be at the center. And glad you turned 40 and decided it was time to take the mantle on that, because it needs to be done.
Thank you. Thank you. And Kristin, thank you so much.
Kristin,
Thank
your
you.
writing is legendary. I don't know how you continue to create books where we get sucked into the history, where you create a story that tells us exactly what it felt like in that moment, that is emotional. Like Julia said, I am picturing you reading what Kristin has written to feel what it was like in World War II in the Nightingale, and how unbelievable your talent is. So thank you to both of you for your time, for sharing your insights and your wisdom into how to bring a whole new version, at least to the Gracies, of storytelling to the world. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And again, congratulations, Julia. And thanks so much to you guys. Keep up the good work. I mean, as Julia says, we need it now more than ever. So I'm glad to have been a small part of this.